their road rage, their panic attacks, eating disorders. These are things that people have when I work with them, when they start with me. Addictions, smoking, drinking, drugs, gambling. It comes out in all those, I call them diversions, because the subconscious is pushing them out, but our conscious is diverting them so we don't have to fear.
If you run away from the fear, you're going to have pain, and your almost certain future is going to be more pain and suffering. Yeah. Or you can choose to be courageous and have pain through healing, but knowing that at the end of it, you will overcome, and the suffering becomes a choice, because that's what Lao Tzu said. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
I see myself in front of a castle. This was the dream. And in the castle, every orifice, every window, there was a weapon of war. There were rifles, bow and arrows, spears, machine guns, some cannons. There was a catapult on top of the castle, and there was a moat in front of the castle with crocodiles, alligators, everything that could eat you.
There's something that you have said before, that re-experiencing the trauma of all five senses is such a crucial part. So why is it such an important part with all the five senses? Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246, and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned, because we have some more great content coming soon. Most of us spend our lives running from our deepest wounds, but my guest today says the only way out is through. Hello, beautiful and amazing people. Welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host, Todd Cave. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Robert T. Bleck, trauma survivor, psychotherapist, and creator of Source Completion Therapy. Robert believes that to reclaim your life, you must confront, re-experience, and complete the very wounds that you've been hiding from. In this conversation, we'll explore how unresolved trauma fuels addiction, toxic love, self-sabotage, and how facing the pain can open you to joy, beauty, and freedom. And yes, Robert will share his own story of surviving childhood abuse and transforming it into a mission that has helped thousands. Buckle up. This won't be a light conversation, but it might just be the most important one you hear this year.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You gotta be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Dr. Robert, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. I want to thank you for inviting me, and it's my pleasure to be with you and your audience.
Thank you very much for joining. And, today is a very interesting times, I should say, in consciousness of humanity, the evolution of human beings. And one of the things that's evolving is that of masculinity, which we can talk about today. And what I find quite interesting about you is that you've been very open about your past, your childhood, and it is not something that I would say most men tend to actually want to talk about. And I find that because of this consciousness shift, and we're starting to redefine masculinity and stuff, I thought it would be a very interesting conversation to have with you because you're also a psychotherapist and you've had many years of teaching people the modality that we'll talk about today. And yes, I thought that this would add great value to our listeners, both men and women, because I think trauma is trauma, regardless on if it was done to you, you did it to yourself, or it just happened by accident, you know? So yeah, I wanted to really delve into these topics today so that we can add some value to people who are on their journey, people that are struggling out there, and for people that think there's no hope or change cannot happen, you know?
Yes.
So you've been very open about the trauma and abuse as you endured as a child. Can you share what it was like to finally speak those truths out loud for the first time?
Sure. Now, each part of my life was important in forming who I am and the work that I do. So I'll start at the very beginning. My mother, she was really abused as a child herself, and she was filled with anxiety, rage, and anger. And that fury came out on me when I was about 3 years old. It started. And I was beaten. I was verbally abused, and I was degraded and humiliated what felt like every day. I'd like to go into some of those specifics, if it's okay.
Yeah, sure.
The beating. Okay. So the beatings, again, I'm 3 years old, and to a child of three, it's really significant. Her beatings, and then for some minor transgressions, maybe I spilled a little milk or I brought in a little dirt. My mother was obsessed with cleaning. If I brought a little dirt from outside, she would beat me sometimes with her fists, closed fists, and sometimes with her hand, open hand. So
Wow.
she would try for my face and whatever part of my body she could reach. I'm a little boy of three, but she didn't care. And if she wasn't hitting me with her fists or her hands, she looked for an object, whatever was close. Sometimes it could be a hanger. Sometimes she, like the big wooden kitchen spoon, she would hit me with. A shoe, she could take off a shoe and hit me. She liked the belt. She would use a belt, particularly the buckle, because it hurt more, she would say. So that was difficult. It was very, very painful for me. So humiliation, what she did, I was so anxious that I wet my bed for a long time, and she would humiliate me in front of friends, reminding me that I wet my bed in front of them. So I would feel so degraded and so humiliated. Wow. Now, what else did it do for me? I had recurring nightmares every night of monsters, demons, witches trying to eat me and beat me, cook me. I woke up screaming just about every night, and I bit my nails till they were bloody, and sometimes they would get infected. And I was terrified of the dark until probably in the teenage years. I kept a light on in my room all the time. So it made me fearful. It made me terrified. And it was really difficult for me to survive. So what I had to do, I had to figure out a way to survive. And we'll fast forward to about 9 years old. At about 9 years old, I also began to feel a deep empathy and compassion for other people who were suffering or struggling in some way. Whether it was an injustice I saw at school, a child being bullied, whether it was some injustice I saw on television, read about, whether it was a person being sick or ill, incapacitated in some way. It disturbed me greatly. And that served for the foundation of what I wanted to do, somehow help humanity. I wasn't sure what it was yet. So I remember, again, being about 9 years old, And I was homesick one day, and was watching the movie, the original movie, black and white movie of Les Miserables. It was in black and white, and it deals with, it's by Victor Hugo, and it deals with the misery of the people of France, their misery, and it centers around two characters: a man whose family is so starving he steals a piece of bread, and the person who hounds him for the rest of his life is a police detective. Throughout his whole life, he's hounded by the person who wants to punish him, put him in jail. And I just remember, and I remember to this day, because I could feel the tears again on my face. I was just sobbing. I was 9 years old. And I said, I want to do something for humanity. I want to help them in some way. I wasn't quite sure what it was. So I figured I have to, first of all, I had to survive my mother. And I had to survive to get out of the house. I depended on her for food and for sustenance, a roof over my head, and for, needs, natural needs like that. So around 14, she came to me. She was going to hit me again. And I said, I got into sports. I was playing sports, and I love nature. I forgot to explain that. Sports got me out of the house. I played hockey, I played soccer, and I even did that into college. So I felt camaraderie with my teammates, and it was an escape. I also enjoyed nature. That was an escape for me. I would go out each morning to see the sunrise. I listened to the birds sing, and I thought they were singing to me. So I felt peaceful in the moment. It was a way to get out of the house, but I knew there was more work to do. There was a lot more work to do. And I had to do the work later on. First, I had to survive. The emotional work for me to do. So around 14, again, she was still coming at me up until then. She started to come at me with her hands, with her fists, and I held my palm out. And I said, you can't do this anymore. You can't hit me. I'm stronger now, and I'll defend myself. I'm stronger for my sports. I don't want you hitting me anymore. She looked into my eyes, deep in my eyes. I looked back at her. She turned around, walked away, and that was the last time she hit me. So I was able to survive being beaten starting at 14 years old. Then I had to figure out, okay, I'm going to help humanity. What am I going to do? I need to go to school. I got to get educated, and I want to do something of value. So what I did is I started working. I worked to save some money. My parents didn't have much money. I had to save some money for college. So I worked at all kinds of, whatever I could do. I worked in the ice cream store, scooping ice cream for people, and my friends would come in for a scoop. I worked in dry cleaning stores. I worked at hotels when I got a little older, 16, 15. I was a bellhop. I worked as a busboy, a waiter, and a lifeguard also. So I held a lot of jobs. I made some money. I kept it. And I was fortunate enough also to get I was fortunate, very fortunate actually, to get a scholarship, an academic scholarship to the school, full tuition. So the money I made, I was able to use for spending money, whatever I needed, books and things like that. So I had a choice. I said, well, look, I could go into being a medical doctor, which interested me, or I could go into psychology. That interested me also. So medicine, body, and also brain, they both interest me. But the medicine wasn't a fit for me. I was finding I wasn't enjoying it as much as I wanted. So I switched to psychology. And I graduated with a major in psychology as an undergraduate. Then I decided to go further. I went to get my PhD. And I was down in University of Florida, which is in Florida. They had a really good program in counseling. I went to that program, and I graduated with a degree in counseling. And I was ready to go out into the world. So I was able to pay also for the graduate school in Florida. I worked there also. I worked as an assistantship I had while I went to school. And I also, when I graduated, I worked in schools. I worked in clinics. And then I got a job as a professor at a university to train others who were and graduate students in becoming counselors and therapists. So that was the beginning of my life, and I graduated. And then how did I get into source completion therapy? Would you like to know how that worked?
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, like, many therapists keep their personal stories hidden. So why is it important for you to begin your work by sharing your own story?
It's a good question. And I always feel honesty is crucial to anything that I do and anything that everybody else does. I always want to be as honest as I can. I don't think the vulnerability doesn't bother me. I want a person to know who they're dealing with, and I want to express my feelings all the time, not hide them. That's part of my therapy, which we'll get into. So honesty is crucial for me, and I'm always coming. I don't want parents to be dishonest to their children, and often I see that they tell them a little lie. They're not telling them the truth. I always say, no, tell them the truth in the way they can understand it. Don't ever lie to your children because they won't trust you. The more you lie to them, they grow up not trusting you,
True.
not coming to you, and you'll regret it. So honesty is always important. It's still important to me. Anybody could ask me any question, I'll always be honest with them, as far as I could be. As far as I know myself, I will be able to express it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So how did your personal pain become the foundation for source completion therapy?
Okay, so what happened was, as I was a professor at a university, I started to get referrals from people who were abused as children. They said, "Bob, would you see us? Would you see me? I was abused when I was a child. Would you see me?" So I said, "Okay, let's try that." So I opened up a small private practice, and I began to see a few people, and that led to more people, more people. So I was having some success at it, but I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't satisfied because I didn't feel I was trained in many, many therapies. I was also in therapy, going through my PhD, and trained in a lot of therapies as well. And I was finding that what I learned, they weren't complete enough. They weren't comprehensive enough to get to the deeper source of people's pain. And when they weren't getting to the pain, they were not reaching the permanent and long-term healing that I wanted them to reach. So I said, let me think what will work and what won't. I saw what worked, what didn't work. I put it all together in a sequence that worked. So when I had that sequence of this 3-phase process, I started to get results. I started to get results for me because I had to go back to my mother and my father and eventually confront them with what was done to me. So that's what helped me. And it helped the people I was working with. So I put together those 3 phases, and they were very, very successful. And then I actually wound up writing a book about it to help others. The book is called Give Back the Pain.
So you've said that most people spend their lives avoiding their deepest wounds.
Right.
Why do you think avoidance feels safer than healing?
Well, because it's painful. If you heal and confront the pain, which is what I do in the therapy with them and with myself, you feel those feelings. So I want to go back to the beginning of life, and then my therapy will fall into line too when I talk about that.
Okay.
How I see life. So the way I look at it, we're all basically born pure, innocent for the most part, and just bursting with potential. Where a baby, when I look at a baby, I think this is the essence of this little being is perfect. Doesn't know discrimination. It doesn't know hate. It's open, and it's pure, and it's wonderful, and it's beautiful. So the problem is with that, what happens, it's not a problem. What's tricky about that, a baby is also innocent and pure, but it's also dependent and helpless. And it depends on adults for the care. Depends on us to meet their physical needs, feed them when they're hungry, change them when they're soiled, and it depends on them to keep them safe from traffic. Don't let them stick their fingers in sockets. Don't let them use knives and whatever else is dangerous to them. Don't lock them in the car. So what happens is if our caregivers don't do that, if they do the opposite, if they don't meet our physical needs, if they don't, if they aren't comforting to us, and instead they beat us, they degrade us, they humiliate us, and they don't keep us safe, a whole bunch of feelings, negative feelings, are produced, okay, in this little child as they get older. Just some of them. I'm just going to go some of them because every one of the people I deal with, no matter how they were abused, have these core feelings. Okay, feel worthless. They feel unloved. They feel unimportant. They feel insignificant. They feel defective in some way. They feel empty. They feel betrayed. A lot of them feel anger and rage. And so those are just some of them, but it's a core of those feelings that everybody that I work with has. Okay, so now as a child, though, what happens is a child, they cannot possibly process the betrayal of being hurt like that, of being beaten. Some are raped, some are just humiliated. So the brain stuffs these feelings down, represses them, and suppresses them really down. It's the way the brain, when we're children, helps us to survive. But it does as when we're a child, it helps us to survive because they're repressed. What happens as we get a little older, those feelings that we've stored inside, they begin to fester and they begin to grow and they morph and they turn into a really toxic emotional brew. Okay. Now, what happens then as we're older, that brew wants to come out. The subconscious it's repressed. The subconscious wants to push these feelings out. It's like sort of, I compare it to when we get food poisoning. If we have a bad meal and the body wants to rid us of that meal, of that poison, so it comes out in every orifice, basically, that it can. It's the same with feelings that we have in our body that we're suppressing. The subconscious wants to get rid of this. But what happens is we still don't want to feel it. Consciously, human beings don't want to feel it because they've been suppressing it all these years. So I call it what it comes out, and it does come out, but it comes out in a diversion, is what I call diversion. Those are obsessions, they're compulsions, they're phobias, they're road rage, they're panic attacks, eating disorders. These are things that people have when I work with them, when they start with me. Addictions, smoking, drinking, drugs, gambling. It comes out in all those. I call them diversions because the subconscious is pushing them out, but our conscious is diverting them so we don't have to feel. But those aren't good either. Those are diversions that hurt us and that just stymie us from getting healthy and having productive and effective lives. So what happens is I had to work on this source completion therapy. My goal was to get to those deeper feelings. So whatever therapy I was in, they weren't getting to it. And whatever therapy I was using with the people I worked with wasn't as deep and comprehensive as I wanted for them. I knew I had to go in and get these feelings out. And I knew instinctively, if I could get those feelings out, those diversions would evaporate because there'd be nothing else to get out. They would evaporate. And that's what happened. So when I heal a person, they become free of their obsessions, free of their compulsions, free of their phobias, free of their rage, free of their addictions, because a lot of times a person who's been abused starts the addiction. They use the drugs or the addiction, the alcohol, the gambling as a comfort in some way to mute those feelings. So I knew I had to get the feelings out, and then all of those diversions that I call would evaporate. Usually people don't believe that when they first come to me, but I say, I promise you, this will work. Stay with me. They do, and they heal. I recently had an actress. I worked with an actress and a award-winning actress and singer. And she was coming to me. She was going to a number of therapies and therapists that wasn't helpful to her. And she was on drugs. She was taking a lot of dangerous drugs. And she was drinking. And she was also in very toxic relationships. It was starting to affect her career and, her jobs as an actor and a singer. So she said, would you see me? I read your book and I saw you on a show. And this seemed right to me. It made most sense to me. And I said I would. And the first thing we looked at was it was phase one. So let's go into I'll go into the phases in a second. What I knew I had to do with her, I explained that she also had a dissociative diversion. She felt that she was having an out of body experience. So I said, she said, yes, if I could help with that. Yeah, I said, and the psychiatrist that she saw before me said, you're schizophrenic, let me give you medication. She said, no, I'm going to find somebody else. So I said, you're not schizophrenic. What's going on with you, you have feelings that you suppressed, probably from your childhood, that are festering inside, want to come out, and your brain wants to dissociate. That's the out-of-body experience. And the drugs you're taking are just you want to use just to somehow repress those feelings. And it's never going to do that. Nothing you try externally will ever do that. So she heard me, she listened, and she worked the three processes, the three phases. The out-of-body experience went away. The drugs went away. The drugs stopped. The toxic relationship, she got rid of all of those. And she went on to her career. It's blossoming now more than ever. So that's just an example of when these feelings are out, you get them out, these painful feelings that I suppressed, and everybody that comes to me does, you get them out. People could really heal long-term and permanent. That's the beauty of it. Then they could live a really healthy life.
So basically what you're really talking about is trauma.
I don't hear you.
Can you not hear me?
I don't hear you.
Okay.
Now I hear you. You.
Sorry.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know. So what you're basically describing is trauma, and trauma shows up in so many different ways. And like you said, it comes basically from your childhood, and
right.
You get these feelings as a child. You don't really, because you know what I find fascinating about humans in general is that humans are the only species on Earth that literally need their parents, their guardians, for a few years before they're even able to do anything. Like animals are able to walk within minutes. They're drinking milk within another few minutes. They are able to run in literally within a day and stuff like that. And humans, we are born in such the smallest way possible. I mean, the weakest way possible, I should say, that we just can't process these emotions that we have, because, you know, if we have like neglect and abandonment and stuff, it just gets trapped.
Sure.
And then it manifests itself as we become younger children, older children, I should say, young adults, and then when we become parents as well. So what are some of the destructive ways unresolved trauma tends to show up in people's lives?
Well, as I said, they become they can become obsessed with something, whether it's another person, whether it's cleaning, whether it's sex. They can become obsessed with that. They could have compulsions to eat. They could have phobias. They could have eating disorders. I work a lot with women who have eating disorders because their fathers abused them in some way. So when they finished work with me, though, they were healed. So I'm proud of that. So eating disorders, panic attacks. I worked recently with a CEO of a company. He was referred to me by a hospital that knew my work. He had went in, he thought he was having a heart attack. He was terrified. His arm was becoming numb, and his blood pressure was higher, and his heart rate was speeding, and he was having it difficult to breathe. He thought he was dying, so he went to the emergency room. And basically, when they finished, they did all the tests, of course, and they said, "You're having a panic attack. That's what it is." And I was referred to him to work on his issues. So what happened was, I described that when he came to me first. I said, "Look, what a panic attack is." I said, think of a glass, a drinking glass. Okay, imagine the glass is your psyche, and the glass, water in the glass would represent all the feelings it could hold. Okay, so if you from your childhood are holding feelings up 3/4 to the top, that's a lot of feelings you hold inside. And then you add the rest of what you do for a living, all the things that you have to manage during your day.
Stress,
more
all that kind of stuff.
We put those drops in there and it overflows. So when that overflows, when the glass overflows, like your psyche overflows, your brain gets short-circuited. So that's what a panic attack is. And he said, that makes sense. I said, it's okay. So let's start the therapy. And then again, I go to the 3 phases. And I'd be glad to do this. So it's I named a few of those. So road rage is also another one that I see people comment that who store feelings inside that comes out in road rage. See that all the time. People will kill each other for a parking space. You've heard of this. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's true.
Right, exactly. So what happens there? They're not angry at the person they're not rageful at this person. They don't want to kill this. They don't know this person. So it's coming from feelings someone in the past that hurt them. So here's an example of that. Before I started work, this was years ago. I don't have the time right now. I would stop my work about 9, and I'd have breakfast at this local coffee shop. And I would come in, and everybody who was going to work before that would come into this coffee shop, and we'd sit around. The guys would talk sports. I would talk sports because I played them, and we talk, and they would come to my table and we talk, and we were enjoying ourselves. But there was one person there, and I liked this gentleman very much. But each week he would come in with a road rage incident that he would be a part of. So I just listened for a while. One guy cut him off. One guy didn't signal. One guy went through the stop sign. He was furious. He would try to chase them and run them down.
Wow.
And finally I said, Steve, I've been listening to road rage. It can't come from that. Your anger and your rage can't come from this person who just didn't signal. So I said, usually it comes from someone in your past that hurt you. That can cause you to have this anger and fury. He trusted me. I can't do this with everybody because they don't trust me. He knew me by talking to sports, and he trusted what I was saying. He knew the work that I do. So I said, so where in your childhood, who really hurt you? So he thought for a second. He said, it was my father. He abandoned the family. He abandoned my mother. He abandoned me and my brother. And I was furious at him for the rest of my life. And I'm still rage for that. Okay, so that's where he came from. Now, he wasn't in therapy with me, but that's an example of where something like road rage that people aren't aware of. When I read these articles about road rage, nobody is talking about coming from the past. They're talking about the guy hit the other person with a crowbar, he took out a gun or a knife. Okay, so these are people injuring each other and not knowing where it comes from. So that's another diversion that people use, is road rage. They could use anything. They can use, some people, they could use even what you think is productive. They could use, I had a person that would exercise for constantly 12 hours a day, and then they would sleep a little, 12 hours the next 12 hours. That was, again, a diversion because it was relaxing them when the endorphins kicked in, but then at night, when they calmed down, their feelings were coming up and they were anxious. They were getting anxious. So they went back. So anything you're doing that's so intensely that involves that, you could look at it. It might be a diversion. You should look at it. So that's what I say with that. So any feeling you hold inside is always going to come out. This is 100% of the time, and something dysfunctional or unconstructive for you. It will always come out. I've never seen it not happen in what I do.
Hello, guys. Apologies if we have a slight break there because for some reason the internet connection dropped, but we're back now with Dr. Robert Bleck. So you've developed source completion therapy as a 3-phase process. Can you walk us through each step? Awareness, relive and or re-experience, and completion.
Sure. Okay, so this is the sequence that I found works the best to get people to dig up the feelings that they've repressed and release them from their body, their soul, their mind, so they can live productive, healthy, and fruitful lives. Okay. So the first is awareness. Other therapies talk about this. Mindfulness talks about this kind of thing. Gestalt therapy talked about it. But sometimes that's all they did. That was their most crucial part. But it's a part of my therapy, but it's not the only part. There's 2 other parts to it. So the first one, the people that I work with start off, they're not aware because most of them have been repressing and suppressing the feelings. So I have to get them to be aware who hurt them, how were they hurt, and basically what they felt about it. So what that entails, I when I'm working with a person, I'm looking at their body language as well, because the subconscious is talking through our bodies, so I could see what their body is doing, and I'm going to address that. And I also use dream interpretation in this phase, and I use pointed questions, open questions that I know how to get a response from. So let me give you an example. Let's talk about body language. A simple example. So a woman came to me. She was referred by a doctor. She was constantly having these very bad rashes that was infesting her whole body, all over her body. They were raw. They were hurting her. They tried to give her oral medicine, gave her shots, creams. Nothing was working, and it's just going on a while. Very, very discouraged about it. So they referred her to me, and I said, so let's take a look. Let's do something and look a little different. Let's take a look at what your body is saying under the skin. What's under the skin? Because your body's talking to you. So she said, well, no one asked me that question before. I never heard that one. So I said, well, think about it. So she thinks for a little bit, and then she looks over at me. That's the poison that's still inside of me. When I sat in my grandfather's lap, and he started to molest me. And that poison has stayed in here all the time. I never talked about it until you asked me that question. And then we go on with the other phases, but we look at more awareness too. So maybe other people hurt her as well. So this is just a simple body language technique that I use. Also, I'll give you one more sample of that. So a woman came to me in her, I think she was in her early 30s. And I was just doing an intake. I was getting her address and her phone number, and I was writing it down. And as I'm talking, I see her leg. She has her legs crossed, and the foot is going like that, shaking her foot in her leg. So I said, I noticed that you're shaking your foot, and I'm curious to know what your foot is saying now, what your leg is saying. So she thought about that again. It took her a second, and she says, it's saying I want to kick you. First in your face, and then I want to kick you in the groin.
Wow.
Okay. So now I know that I'm not offended. I know that this is coming from a deeper place, but I'm getting somewhere. So I just asked her the open question, well, how come you want to do that? And she said, you're a man, and all you men want is to use us, throw us out, abandon us when you're through with us. Like my father did and my boyfriends did. You just want to throw us away. And I had enough of men. Okay, so then what I do is I take it back to all the people that hurt her, tell me how they did that. So then she talks about it, and we get away. So that's example of a foot shaking, and it gives me clues to what I need to address. So this is simple body language. Now in dream interpretation, this is really important, and I like the way to interpret a dream by using every person or thing as a part of the person's self. So the subconscious is talking to them. So here's a simple example of that. So the woman had a dream, and she said, I see myself in front of a castle. This was the dream. And in the castle, every orifice, every window, there was a weapon of war. There were rifles, bow and arrows, spears, machine guns, some had cannons. There was a catapult on top of the castle, and there was a moat in front of the castle with crocodiles, alligators, everything that could eat you. So I said, okay, so the way I'd like you to interpret this is tell me how the castle is a part of you. So again, she thought of this, and she says, that's the part of me that's cautious about everything. I don't trust anybody. I stay isolated. I don't want anybody to touch me, come near me. However, the reason I'm coming to you because I'm lonely. I feel too isolated and I feel empty. But I still am cautious and I want to break that. I'm too protective of myself, and that's what the castle is. It's a big part of myself. So that's how two simple things of body language, how that works. So when I get to know more about them, and we move on to the next phase, which is relive and re-experience. Here's where I have people. I train them in and teach them visualization, self-hypnosis, and hypnosis. Here is where I take them back to the people that have hurt them, okay, in time. They go back to the source of the event, and then I tell them to feel the feelings, hear the sounds, smells if you have any, sights, and I take them back and they go back into the event and the people or persons that have hurt them. That's very powerful. It's very, very, it's very difficult for them to do it at times. But when they get there, the feelings come up. That brings the feelings up to the surface. That's where I want them, so they could be then released. So again, that's a very, very, it takes time and trust for a person to do this with me, to go back and actually deal with the event. Okay. So we stay in the awareness phase for a while until they're ready to go to the next phase, which is the reliving. Then the third phase, I'm going over these phases briefly, is I have the people go to the source with the father, the mother, the sister, the grandfather, whoever hurt them, tell them how they were hurt and how they felt about it. And that is the completion. That's why I call it completion. That completes the healing process. Now, it's not a day process. It takes time, certainly, to get to all these feelings, to get to the awareness. And but when the process is completed, it's successful. Now, in the last phase, it's called the feedback phase or completion. There are ways to do it, because people ask me, well, suppose they're dead. Suppose my parents or the ones that hurt me are dead. Well, you could go to the grave and talk to them. I have people do that. You could visualize them in front of you and talk to them. Close your eyes, visualize them and talk to them. You could write a letter to them, and you could write an email to them. And it's not going to be sent because they're gone, but that still gets the feelings out and completes the process. So I had one person, and it took a while for this process to take place. She came to me again. She was maybe mid-30s. She came to me. She was just really, really in pain. Came to me. She hadn't taken a shower for years because that's where her father raped her in her house in the shower. For years. And he also raped her in his bed. So she slept on the floor for a small apartment and sponge bathed. She used washcloths to bathe herself. And she was just miserable. She couldn't hold a job. She couldn't hold a relationship. So she was referred to me. So what happened was I got all those, through these two phases, I got to where she could tell me what happened and relive it. So that got the feelings out. And she went to the grave. He held a knife over her throat when he would rape her sometimes. She had that knife. She took the knife and she stabbed his grave, telling him how he affected her, how he ruined the first part of her life. And so that was really effective. It was cathartic. It was releasing. And then she also wrote a letter to him, and she had like a little ritual of all the things that he did and her feelings. And she took a match to it and burned it like in a dish. And that was like, again, releasing it. And what happened was then she started to take showers. She started sleeping in bed. Started to have a relationship. In fact, she got married. She went back to school, became a social worker. And she helping other people, and she had a child, so she's living a very very productive and fruitful life, and I'm proud of it, proud of her. But she came to me really like no one was helping her enough, no one went deep enough on what she needed to do. So that's the three phases.
So from what you just described, it seems like if re-experiencing the trauma is really important, but there's something that you have said before, that re-experiencing the trauma of all five senses is such a crucial part. So why is it such an important part with all the five senses?
Well, because it really brings them back to the event. It brings them back as if they were there reliving it. It's if they were there as they were 20 years ago. That's what the senses do. So when they're describing, and now I smell the alcohol in his breath. I could smell his cologne. I can't. I smell the sweat, and I feel like throwing up. I feel nauseous. He nauseated me. So that's the smell. So they are really immersing themselves in the experience that they had. So, and when a person did that, they are really getting up those feelings, and we work with them. And in that phase, I have them do more than just when they relive it. I want them to stay with that longer. So I have them work in different mediums that they like. Some write what took place when they relived this and what they want to say to their fathers. Some what they do is they wrote poems about it. I had an artist that I work with, really a good artist, and what she did, she took a piece of the easel paper, I guess you call it. The artists call it easel paper, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so easel paper, and she asked for a pen, and she says, "I'm going to show you how I feel about what was done to me and what it did to me." She put a dot. It was a huge piece of paper. It was a black dot in the middle of the paper, and said, "I feel nothing. I feel worthless. I feel insignificant. I felt invisible. I just feel alone." So that's what I feel, like that little dot. So I have them work in a medium they're comfortable with, continuing to express the feelings. So I had one person, he wrote a poem about his mother abandoning him, and that's in my book. Some of these things are in the book because I wrote the book so everybody could understand it through these stories that I'm telling. Some of these stories, there's many of them in the book, and how I healed them. So he just wrote a poem. Some of the people wrote. So I want them to stay with those feelings that arise in that second phase the best they can. Then that gets them ready then to go to the people directly.
And then the completion. So what does completion actually look like for someone who's carried pain for decades and decades?
Okay, now they've been through, with me, it would be, they went through the first phase, they got aware, they relived it, the feelings are on the surface. So sometimes they bring the people in, if the people are willing to, if they want to have any relationship. They bring them into my office and they tell the person how they were affected by what was done to them.
Wow.
With their feelings. So that's very powerful. Yes, that's the
powerful
feeling that I get. Very powerful. If the people, again, let's say one's in New York, one's in Mexico, so they call them and they can talk to them, or they can use FaceTime and what we're using, and they tell them. So it's a very powerful experience. People are afraid. A lot of them are afraid for two reasons. Number one, because it's bringing up more of the feelings. The person who hurt them is in front of them, so they're leery to touch on that again. Also, some of them develop some kind of relationship with this person, and they don't want to blow it. They're afraid they'll lose whatever little they have. So they're scared of it. But it's always productive that I've experienced, and it's always healing. So once they get to that phase, and it doesn't, these phases, they don't, it's not quick because it takes them some time. I go at each person's timing and each person's phase. I can't push this. I can't push them to go to a place that they're not ready to do, and they have to trust me. So it takes time. I say it takes three things. It takes how deep and buried the feelings are for you. It takes how committed you are to the process and how, if you believe in it, and how courageous you are to confront the source. So it takes those three things. And they understand that, they know it, and they know me, they know my work, and they trust me, the ones I work with. Because if they don't, it won't work. This is a really it's a intense, at times painful process, but it's really healing. Because if you don't really get to the source, it's like having a pus-infected wound on your arm, and the doctor put a bandage on it. Not going to work. It's just going to get worse. You get gangrene, maybe lose the arm. So I said, well, clean out. The good doctors are going to clean out the pus, stitch it up, put peroxide on it, or whatever else, iodine, or whatever else they're going to put on it. Heal it from the inside, and then it heals. So, but So this is just like feelings. You can't suppress the feelings and expect nothing to happen. You have to go deeper and deeper into them, and that's the key. So, and those three phases do it. It did it for me. It worked for me. And so people ask me, did you do this? You do what you do, what you're asking me to do? I said, I sure did. Yeah. And I had my issues with my mother. I don't go into all the details, but if they ask me, I will tell them the details. I don't, again, we talked about honesty the first time. I never lie to them.
Wow.
So,
The thing is, what you're describing is what I say all the time, in the sense of that fear is the biggest saboteur of all new possibilities. Fear causes you to self-sabotage in terms of eating, being in an abusive relationship, abusing someone,
right.
not getting into shape, not showing up in the world as you would like, etc. And fear is a very powerful energy and emotion.
It was for me,
And
yes.
I find that it takes extreme levels of courage in order to confront your fears. And I think this is one of the reasons why most people tend to run away from them, because, you know, and that's why I say to people that you need to choose which pain you want, because if you run away from the fear, you're going to have pain, and your almost certain future is going to be more pain and suffering. Yeah. Or you can choose to be courageous and have pain through healing, but knowing that at the end of it, you will overcome, and the suffering becomes a choice, because that's what Lao Tzu said. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. So I tell people, basically choose which pain you want, because both are painful. One will add to you and the other one will subtract from you. But most people tend to choose the one that subtracts from them, you know?
Correct. Unfortunately. So, but the ones who come to me and work with this, they heal. That's the rewards of dealing with the pain. They heal and they live productive and satisfying lives and fulfilling lives.
Yes, I'm very happy to have this conversation with you, because I think that a lot of people today, they're really suffering. They're having a lot of pain. And you even wrote a book about it. In your book, Give Back the Pain, you wrote about people who found freedom after confronting their trauma. Sure. So which story stays with you the most and why?
Well, they all stay with me. They're all a part of me, and they never will leave the work that I've done. There's a chapter, the end chapter is a case of one woman I show that go through the complete process. Okay. So this is a woman who had all these diversions. She came to me. She was addicted to gambling. She was a smoker also. She smoked. She drank and she drank. And so she would describe how she'd be in Vegas or at a casino somewhere, maybe Atlantic City, cigarette in her mouth, one hand on the slot machine and the other hand on the alcohol. And then when she was finished with that, she'd continue again, more drinks, more alcohol, more gambling. Okay, so she was not happy with that. But one part, the only part, and she was also obsessed with cleaning. So what she would do, every day she would get up really early. She would vacuum every rug in the house. And then she would get on, after the vacuuming was finished, she'd get on her hands and knees with a comb, and she would see if there was any lint in every carpet. I think that would take us about 2 hours to do. So that's a person with an obsession and a compulsion for cleaning. So she did that. But she says the thing that prompted her to see me, she knew what I did, and that made sense to her. She said, one day my son, a young boy, maybe he was 7 or 8. I was giving him a shower, and all of a sudden I was holding him under the shower. I found my hands holding him, and he said, "Mommy, I can't, you're drowning me. I can't breathe." And she snapped out of it, and she said, "I have to go to therapy. I can't do this anymore. It's my child. I don't want to hurt my child." So she saw me in therapy. She came to me in therapy. And we got to the point, who hurt her, and that was her father when she was young. He was an alcoholic and he was abusive in many ways. So then she went back in time, like I taught her to do, and uh, she imagined that her house and her father coming through the door, drunk like he did every night after work, and he would choose what room he would go into to berate or beat somebody. And the thing that she told me was that he went into my brother first, and my brother would scream and scream, and I could hear it through the walls, and it terrified me, and I was just frozen. So he would do that. We didn't know who he would do to each night, but that's what I lived with. So she went back in time to those situations and those feelings, and then eventually went to her father and talked to him about it. Gambling stopped, drinking stopped, smoking stopped, and she never hurt her child anymore. She lived a productive life. That's what happened.
So basically, that is a fantastic story of how confronting trauma can free someone from cycles of addiction, toxic relationships, and self-sabotage, and almost killing your son.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, they're very powerful. It's still powerful to me to this day. And when I do the work, I'm really enmeshed in what I do. I'm totally there for the person. But so what's my rewards? My rewards is seeing a human being heal. That's the rewards. There's nothing else I want to do in my life other than continue to do that. So that's my reward, seeing these people heal.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for me, my reward comes because I do this show and I get messages from people that say the conversations that I have helped them to either get back into shape or start eating better, to seek therapy, work more diligently to get a promotion. Men say they can take care of their children better because of the conversations I have about taking responsibility. So likewise for me, I have a lot of joy and reward and fulfillment from doing this show. So you've said healing is not just about reducing pain, but about rediscovering joy, beauty, and wonder. Can you expand on that?
Yes, because when a person is filled with all this pain, it's hard for them to take in. They're just really filled in it. The psyche is filled up, like I just explained in the water glass, and they can't. Joy won't enter. They might think they feel joyful. They're drinking and alcohol. People lose control and they're dancing or whatever it is they do, but it's not. Alcohol is a depressive drug, and the next day they're not feeling so good. So, you have to get rid of these feelings, and then once you're rid of, you're open to the magic and the wonder that life can be, because it can be really joyful. Like I still go out every morning, just about get up early morning. I listen to the birds. I take it in. I still think they're singing to me, and I just am in awe of nature, the wonder of the trees, the sky, and the redness of the sunset. And there's magic to me. And when I hold a little baby, I am so overcome by the pureness of this little purity of joy. I overcome with joy with tears. That's how it overtakes me when I'm with a baby. So that's pure joy that's taken into me. I take that right in and I love it. So you could be open to all the beautiful things in a good relationship. I love taking hikes in the mountains. That's what I do, and I love the majesty of the trees and the beauty of the fresh, cool air that I take into my lungs. And I love a starlit night. That's a real clear night. I could stay out for hours, watch and just look at the stars and take that all in. First, I had to get rid of the rest of the stuff that was inside, which I used this process, and I'm able to take that in. Whatever the joy that I can. My wife, I take the joy of her. I love holding her hand. So I still I love that. And so whatever, each person would have the things that they love to do, but they would enjoy it more and more passion and more joy, the more feelings they release and the more feelings then they have room for it, is what I call it.
Okay. So guys, we can take a very, very short break here just to say, if you're finding value in this conversation, hit pause for a second. Share this episode with one person you love. someone who may be carrying unspoken pain. This might be the turning point they need. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246 or at the Conscious Man 7 podcast and drop us a message with your biggest takeaways you've heard so far. Now let's get deeper with Dr. Robert T. Bleck. So you often talk about how sensory re-engagement is the key to breaking from trauma's grip. What does that mean in practice?
Well, again, it's being aware of all your senses, your sight, sound, smell, taste. Even I didn't talk about taste. They're all crucial, especially when you go back and relive the trauma. But now you could, if you're finished with the process or complete enough with the process, you could use your senses to be joyful about it. I mean, what's better than the sights and sounds that I described of being on a hike in the mountains?
True.
I hear the birds. I smell the forest, the earthy smell. I hear the birds or the chipmunks. I hear all that. I take that in. I can't. And if people just cut that off, they're not taking in all that joy of what's around them. So sensory is important for two ways, the way I look at it. It's important to relive that pain, but through the senses. And once you do that, once you complete the process, it's important then to take in the joy that getting these feelings out could let you do.
Okay, so what you're talking about then really talks about vulnerability. So what role does vulnerability play in redefining truth strength, especially for men?
Yeah, again, that's a good question. Men often aren't. They're taught to be, whatever the word you want to use, macho. They're taught not to feel. They're taught not to cry. A lot of times. For me, it was, if you're not being vulnerable or honest, I'd rather call it honest. I don't feel vulnerable at this point when I talk about my feelings or pain. I just feel who I am. I feel honest, and I feel that that's what I am and who I am, and I want to share that with you. So I don't feel vulnerable. People only feel vulnerable if they're scared to express that. They were again taught not to express it, but it just clogs up the works. We'll use vulnerability. Be vulnerable and be honest, be open. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. I consider a person strong who does that, not weak. Very often in certain cultures or certain environments, young boys are taught not to cry, not to express their feelings. And that's harmful. So always want to express your feelings, not want to hold them in. And you'll be honest. Always be honest, especially with the children, because I always see parents, and it bothers me when I watch a show, and the parents in the show are saying something, not telling the child what he asks. He asks, "What's going on, mommy? What's happening?" And they lie. "Oh, nothing. It's just I had an issue at work." And really, maybe they got into a car accident, maybe they had a fight with the father, maybe something happened with them that they're scared. They don't want to tell the child. They want to protect the child, is what they say. I see you're not protecting them. What you're doing is causing them to not trust you. So tell them the truth in the way that a child could understand.
I find that today in our society, and I understand why, because in the sense of because women have had to they were disenfranchised for many years, they weren't able to vote or own property and stuff. There's a lot of support for women, which is great. But I find that men have also been disenfranchised, but on a different level, on a different side, where they're not really men's groups. They're not places where men can go and cry or be amongst a brotherhood that they can get counsel or share their experiences and stuff like that. And men tend to just be solo. And if you ask most men today, so, hey, who do you rely on when you have problems or challenges and stuff? And they say, no one, just me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that we men, we do need some help and support. And I'm glad and I'm trying to get that message out there, because I interviewed a guy who actually does have a group like that. But in reality, they're so far and few in between that a lot of men don't seem like if they have a place or an outlet. And I mean, like, even when you look at things like divorce, men seem to get the bad end of the stick. And
Right.
even like in the UK, where I've lived for many, many years, there's something called Fathers for Justice, where like fathers would climb like high-rise buildings just to draw attention to themselves because there's no help or support. There's no place where men can actually say, well, hey, hand up in the air. We actually do have some challenges here, but no one cares, to be honest, because if you ask most men who cares about you, they're actually with women now have partners. No one cares about us. And it's a sad reality that we have. And, I think that the work that you are doing, it creates a space for men to actually go, because men have been affected on a different side. Women have been affected more visibly and men have been affected more invisibly. Would you say that that's correct?
Yeah, that would work. Yeah, that would work. Absolutely. Um, I do work with a number of men, and fortunately, they're getting healthier. They express their feelings now. But I worked with one man. His wife asked him to come to me because she was seeing me, and I started seeing him, and he had so many feelings inside that he was taught not to express. For a long time, we would just sit there, and not much that he would say, but I didn't push him. I just said, whatever you want us to talk about, just talk to me. So he would stay. It would be months before he would deal with anything, and then he started with baseball. Started talking to me about baseball. He liked baseball, and I said, okay, so tell me about it. And he would talk about baseball for a while, and then he started to talk about eventually because he was trusting me. I didn't push this with him because he was taught for so long not to express anything, and he didn't have anybody to express it with. Okay, he was bullied at school, so he didn't have any friends, and he was abused by his parents, and neglected. So he didn't have parents at home, and he didn't have friends at school. So eventually, I just stayed with him, and he started to tell me how painful that was, not being bullied, and how it hurt him, how he felt worthless and defective and inadequate. And then he started talking more and more and more, and he opened up. And now it comes to the end of the session, he doesn't want to stop. I said, well, we have to stop. It's time. I have somebody else I have to see now, but we'll continue. We'll continue next week. And he just talks, and he's healing. He's having a much better relationship with his wife and his children, and he doesn't hide his feelings. He talks to her about the feelings. So that's an example. I didn't push him. I just waited till he was ready, and I let him develop trust in me. There are some groups that I know of here that some of the people that I work with do go to. There's grief groups, so I know they grief if they lose somebody to death. They go to this group, and there's men and women talking. So I know there's a couple of those. But I'm offering to men. I do see a number of them that know my process. And they want to trust me, so I'm able to start the process of them expressing themselves and getting those feelings out, and then they live better lives.
What you said is like super important for men trust because we're taught to not express our feelings. For men, we have to have high levels of trust in the person to be able to share. I think that's the slight nuance between men and women, where because women express their feelings a lot more and openly,
Right.
their levels of trust are lower for men. So men have to feel that they can trust you to be able to share. Because what happens a lot to men is when they do share, especially with women, a lot of women find the men less attractive. So there's this degree of like safety where they have to be like really be sure, which is what you said, that the guy took months and months and months. And that's exactly the process that a lot of men go through, where before they will share their deepest and darkest things, they have to be like, is she going to judge me? Is she going to leave me? What she's going to think of me? So So to girls out there, if you're hearing this, if a man is not necessarily sharing, just give him a little time, because for men, there's a different process in terms of being able to share. They have to have high degree levels of trust. And once they trust, then they're able to share just like how he shared with you.
Right.
So why do you believe that being brutally honest with our inner experiences is the gateway to freedom?
Again, because it unlocks all those feelings that you hide inside, that fester, they turn to poison. It unlocks them. Okay. If they're not unlocked, if they stay in there, okay, they will always 100% of the time that I've been doing this for decades, it will come out in dysfunctional and ugly ways they're not going to like. So it's the key. You have to unlock those feelings. That's why it's crucial. They'll just fester and they'll fester and they don't go away. Time won't bring them away. I dealt with a man that came to me in his 60s. He says, well, shouldn't I be done with this? This happened in my childhood. I say, well, no. What happens is it gets worse. It festers and festers and festers. And you think you stuff it down. You think you ignore it. But it doesn't go away. It just gets muted. Okay. The only way to get it away is to feel it and process it out. That's the only way you get that out. It will never go away for as long as you live.
It's true. It's like that is very much akin to like if you have like a speck of sand in your shoe or a small pebble. In the beginning, it's very uncomfortable, but the more steps you take, the more that pain or discomfort gets less and less. And then after a while, it just disappears. It's still there, but you keep walking more and more and more. And then after maybe several miles, you have this pain in your foot and you're wondering, what's happening? You know what I mean? But shoe's comfortable. Everything is all present and correct. What's going on? And is that speck of sand or that small pebble in the shoe, which is the things that are in the background that are just bothering us and affect us in how we show up at work or relationships with our boss, spouses, children, even business, it affects everything. So
everything, every part of your life, it will affect.
Absolutely, every part. So do you think society is afraid of conversations about trauma because they force us to confront truths we'd rather bury?
I do think that's a problem with society. I mean, a lot of whoever's in charge of the society, or whether it's teachers or they're not wanting to confront their own issues and their own pain. So they're certainly not going to talk about you doing it. So yeah, the society does that, and it keeps a big portion of society, not the people I work with, but a big portion of society, it keeps them locked in their feelings, not processing and not living productive, healthy, and satisfying lives. That's what it will do. It will do that all the time. Can't get away with it. And nothing. People who sometimes they look to externals to take away the pain. They look to material possessions, money. They look to for relationships. They go from relationship to relationship to relationship, thinking that that's going to take away their pain. It never does, and it can't. The material wealth can't. Material possessions can't. Nothing external could take away the feelings that you've locked inside. The only thing that could do it is you process it out. So a lot of people, you see Hollywood people often, they have boats, yachts, planes. None of that will take it away. So, and some of them come to me and well, how come it isn't? I got a great life. I make all this money. No, because you're not processing your feelings. So it doesn't matter how much boats you have, how many cars, it's fancy, how many women or men that you have that you line up. None of it will take the feelings away, and none of it will make you satisfied.
I can concur what you said with a real story. So I'm actually working on a podcast now with this guy. He was very successful. He had a tech company. He sold it. He made 140 million. And then his depression started. Literally, he had everything on the external, but the internal, there was this massive void. And he went on ayahuasca retreats, magic mushrooms. He did LSD. He did Temescal. He went on this massive search because he said that when he sold his company, he made all this money. He said he was expecting all the accolades and people to say, "Hey, mate, well done." You know what I mean? Boom, boom, boom. And he said that he just felt this emptiness where he was like, "Where's the applause? Like, where are the accolades? Like, where are the pats on the back?" And he just went into this massive state of like, he said he felt like he had nothing. And when I was talking to him, he says, Todd, like when people introduce me and, they sat at the interviews and they say, well, I made 140 million and then just went depressed. He says that most people tend to just laugh because it's like, hey, mate, well, like you made all this money. Like, what's wrong? Like, how come you can't be happy? Why is there not more fulfillment and joy? But like you said, these external things, they don't get to the root cause because his identity was made or built on that project, success of delivering that. And then after that was done, it was like, well, what's next? What's there? Right?
Yes, exactly. So he felt worthless probably as a child. It would go back deeper. And he used the success being producing all the time to mask all that. So somewhere he felt not good enough, worthless, and no matter what he accrued externally, it can't take that away. Those feelings, he would only have to relive them and feel them. And that's a great story that you had. Yes, that's a perfect example.
I tell you, that was a very, very interesting conversation because, I find that like most of us, both men and women, we're taught, go to school, get a nice job, you work these 40 hours a week, work for 40 years in your life and retire on 40 years of salary. That was the old sort of like mantra that they drilled into us. And what's happening now is that because things are changing in the economy and the devaluation of the currency, money now is like the thing that we think about all the time. It's always on our mind. It's almost like our God. And we spend more time trying to hustle for money than really living life. That what happens is that you get some people that their life is working for the money, but then some people get it. And then because there was nothing that was built behind it, like the fears and the traumas, the identity, self-worth, because that's exactly what he said. He said that his grandfather was reasonably successful in business. His father was an entrepreneur as well. And he felt this great amount of pressure to be successful as well. And there was certain, I don't want to give away the entire interview, but there were certain things that happened to him that made him say, I am going to be better. I am going to show everybody. I am going to be the man. And it all fell off of a cliff. So I wanted to say to people that material things don't make you happy. Money doesn't make you happy. Money gives you choices. But I think what money does do as well is that it accentuates and elevates what is really inside of you. Because if you have a lot of trauma, fear, doubt, having loads of money will make that even worse because you'll be thinking about, or is this person trying to steal my money? So maybe I need to get security to protect me because for my life. Then if you feel like you're not worthless, then you probably be spending money buying loads of expensive things because you want to show people that you're worth something. So money is both a gift and a curse, where I think it just highlights more the frailties that we have inside of us. Would you say that's correct?
It does. I mean, we're not talking about, you and I are not talking about the money necessary to eat and to have a roof over our head. We're talking about money to extravagant, to just use more and more material things, jewelry, boats, cars, planes, clothes, whatever. We're talking about money on excess. Okay, that will never do it for you. It will never take away that pain. I have a similar story. I was on a talk show years ago. It was a radio. It was a sports show. The host was a sports guy, and he had a sports show. And he said he read my book. He wanted to have me on the show because he liked it. And the question he asked me, he said, Darryl Strawberry was playing baseball at the time. He was a New York Met. He played, and he was a home run hitter. The Mets won the World Series. He was great. He was idolized. The whole city, New York City, idolized him. And what happened is he turned to drugs. He went on drugs, and it set his life back a lot. And so he asked me, the host of the show, the radio show, he had everything. He had money, he had fame, he had fortune, he was a great athlete. I said, what? He asked me, why did he turn to drugs? I said, I don't know him personally, but what happens, he probably didn't feel good inside when he was a child. Somebody hurt him, and he didn't feel worthy. He didn't feel adequate as a child. That was basically what I would guess at. And sure enough, so he was interested in what I had to say, the talk show host, and he liked it. It must have been a month or two after that. I saw an interview with Darryl Strawberry on the television. And the guy asked him the same question, why did you turn to this stuff? And his answer was, when somebody thinks you're worthless and calls you worthless when you're a child, you don't get over that. That was what he said. He says, meaning him, I didn't get over that just because of the fame and the fortune. So that was on somebody who was a hero to the people in New York City and New York State. But if you have the money, but you haven't dealt with your feelings, it's useless.
Yeah, very true. So for someone listening right now who knows they've been running from their wounds, what's one first step they can take today?
Just think of what you feel. Think of what you feel at the moment, in this moment. And then think about where that comes from. What are you hiding? What don't you want to feel? So those are the questions I would ask. And if you have addictions, if you have a phobia, if you have a compulsion, if you have an eating disorder, try to get in touch with what you don't want to feel. That's usually a question I would start with. What don't you want to feel?
Okay, good. And from Give Back the Pain book that you wrote, what is the most practical exercise that anyone can try at home to start healing today?
Well, if you're in the second phase, I would go to the first phase first. Just get aware of who hurt you. So ask yourself, what don't I want to feel? And what's causing me to drink? What's causing me to rage at my partner? What's causing me not to show up for work? See what's causing that. So you want to get the awareness first. That's the first part of the whole process. Focus on that. What don't I want to feel? What's causing me to do the diversions? And then you want to stay with, if there's a dream that you have, try to process it the way I described in today's interview. Try to imagine each person in there as a part of you and identify with that person in the dream, what part of that is. Okay? Be aware of your body language. If you're like this, crossing your arms all the time, what is that saying? You want to protect yourself? If you have your fists closed all the time, what are you saying there? Are you saying how anxious you are? Get in touch with feelings, what your body is saying. Listen to those number of things, your dreams, your body language, and what don't you want to feel. That would be the first start. The second phase, it takes time to get there. So you asked me about just to start this process. Get in touch with the awareness. How you were hurt, who hurt you, and what your dreams and your body is saying. The feelings still remain inside you.
Okay. So you've helped thousands heal using source completion therapy. What's the biggest lesson your clients have taught you?
That's a good one. What they've taught me: be even more empathic than I've been. Even when I'm tired, listen, focus on what the person's saying. So be more empathetic is to my capacity. Be kind and be patient. So they've taught me to be more of those things. I had some of it, but they taught me to be more. I'm in a good place for myself now.
I can imagine patience would be one of the harder ones, because for me, I find that having patience is, when they say patience is a virtue, I honestly understand where that comes from,
Right.
because in doing what I do as a coach, I have had to learn how to be patient, because I have to always remember that the things that I teach, I know off the top of my head. So I have to always try to remember how was it for me when I was first starting, and the challenges I had. And so I always have to take a step back to realize, okay, well, I was there. So yeah, patience and empathy are two of the biggest skills I think you can have when being a coach, or in your case, a
Yes.
psychotherapist.
Yes.
It's quite challenging though, because I find that I have to do a lot of resetting of myself, because when you help people, you tend to take on some of their emotions and their energy, because it's basically energy transfer.
It is.
So, for any person out there listening that is either a coach or healer or a therapist like yourself, what are some of the things that you do in order to help reset yourself to go back to that 0 point? Because obviously you take on stuff every day, um, you know?
Yeah, some of the common things that I do is I take breaths. I breathe in, hold it for 4 seconds, and breathe out. Do that 10 times. I also go back to a place that I loved, or the mountains, in my head. So it's sort of meditative. So, I was doing this before I knew what meditation even was. I would go back to being up in the mountains. I see the trees. I see the lake right in front of me right now, and my eyes are closed. I see I see the stream. I see the stars. The stars at night were magnificent in the mountains because there was no light pollution. So each one, it was awe. I was awed by the stars. So I go back. I see all those. I see all those things. So that's meditative. And relaxation techniques with breathing. So those are all healthy ways to calm, reset myself after a day of work. I'll do those. I'll do that all the time. I also exercise every morning. I have a routine that I do. It takes about an hour, and I like it, and that gives me some endorphins for the day. So I've been doing that for a long time. Like I said, I played soccer and I played ice hockey in college. I went up to that level, and I just enjoyed the sport, so it makes my body feel good, and then my mind. I do the relaxation techniques, so I try to do it all for my body and my mind to stay healthy.
Yes, I agree, because like for me, fortunately, because I'm a fitness coach, fitness is one of the things that I do.
Right.
And I do concur that definitely exercise has been a big part of me in terms of helping to deal with that. Because if you're feeling frustrated, I tell people I just take it out on my body, right? To get the release. And that certainly helps. And like for me, I give gratitude. So I have a practice of gratitude that I spend no more than 5 minutes a day to do it, because when things start to become a little stressful for me and there's so many things to do at the same time, then just taking that step back and giving gratitude just for 5 minutes, that helps to
Mm-hmm.
reset me to realize actually everything is under control. I'm managing, I'm doing everything and stuff like that, because as a person and I consider us healers, because we are the people that just facilitate the people to heal. We don't
Right.
heal people. But as healers, I find that um, it is very much a constant reminder that you have to that you have to do the work on yourself to reset, because you take on some of the energy that is transferred from them to you because of through their healing. And as I said, energy is neither created or destroyed; it's just transferred. So if it comes from them to you, you need to pass it into the universe and let the universe deal with that and recalibrate it yourself, itself.
Yes, I do. I agree with that. Yes. Perfect. Yeah. No, the energy and what I deal with is so intense. I do have to reset.
I can imagine,
Yeah, I do have to reset.
because some of the stories of like rapes and sexual
Yeah.
abuse, like I mean,
Right.
that's heavy stuff.
Very heavy. Yeah. Right. And what I have to do is I'm doing it for a while, like I said, decades. So I know that I have to stay focused on this person because I have to heal them. So it's not, I have to be concentrating. So it takes me energy to concentrate all that energy on helping them as well as hearing their stories. So, when I'm finished with the day, I need to take time to reset. It's very important.
Absolutely. You feel drained, isn't it?
It's very draining, yes.
Okay. So how do you envision source completion therapy influencing the broader conversation on trauma in the next decade?
Well, I'd like it to be a really, a part of the conversation, a major part of it. Again, because the way I look at it, if you don't do it on the depth that I'm talking about, people won't be healed permanently. And that's what I want. I want the society, I want human beings to be healed permanently and long term. So if you look at society, if you look at where we are now, the world seems pretty dangerous now. People are shooting each other with machine guns and going into churches and schools. This person who's doing that, I don't know how they were hurt, but they get access to these guns and they're just killing rampantly. And the society needs healing. So the only way to do it, the way I look at it, is to deal with the depths of the feelings that are locked inside. I hope the rest of society. That's why I'm doing podcasts and yours. I want to reach out a little bit more. I haven't done that in a while because I've been so busy with the people that I work with, and I just didn't have the energy to go out again. I did it for a while, but then I stopped. So I'm out here again now, trying to show people what would be healthy and helpful for them.
You know what? If I had the money and I would send all the politicians to you to get healing because I think that they need the most healing. And I did an interview once. It was of a shaman, and he said that if he could, he would send all the politicians to an ayahuasca retreat for a couple of weeks, and then they can serve in politics, because that way they can get rid of all of their stuff and purge it out and then come back and be proper leaders, because they too have their traumas,
They do.
And they pass it on to us as well.
They do. And they pass it on to their families.
Absolutely.
They pass it on to everybody who lives around them in their wakes. I would want to do that for everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
That would be my hope.
So if every man listening were to take one courageous action this week to face his own pain, what would you want it to be?
Take a few minutes, look inside yourself. And again, I ask yourself the same question. How was I hurt when I was younger, and who hurt me? I would like them to answer that question. And what feelings are still inside of me.
Okay. And what do you hope people remember most about your work when they hear the name Dr. Robert T. Bleck in the next few years?
Well, that he cares. He makes me feel not alone, because he experienced abuse himself. He healed from it. I'd like them to feel then they could heal from it, and that I was sincere and honest and authentic. Those are the things I'd like people to gather from me.
Okay. And we get you to here on this one. So looking back at your own journey, what has been the most unexpected gift that came from facing your deepest wounds?
That I could be a healer. I know what it's like to be hurt. And I understand it, and I've lived it, and that's the gift. That's why I often feel that what I went through helped me better as a therapist. So that's what the gift. The gift was what I endured and what I healed from, so I could help others. That's my gift.
Okay, awesome. So awesome conversation we just had. So please tell the lovely folks at the Conscious Man 7 where they can find you, how they can work with you, anything that you have, projects, anything you want to plug, and all of that good stuff.
Sure. Okay. So you can reach me, and it has all the contact information. It has information about my book. which is called Give Back the Pain, at my website. And that's simple, Robert Bleck, BLECK.com, robertbleck.com. That's my website. So you can go there and get it. And then and any contact information you want is there. My phone number, my office phone number, access to my book, and what source completion therapy is about is all on my website. And let's see, the book is called Give Back the Pain, and by me,
Okay.
Robert Bleck.
So all the links to everything to Dr. Bleck will be in the description of this podcast. And guys, if you like conversations like this and you want to get into shape because your traumas, your physical pain, and also your thoughts and beliefs shape how you show up in the world, and that also affects your physical appearance. If you want to work with me one-on-one, you can hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook. Send me a message and let's see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army. And if you would like some help to remove some fears and traumas, and as we were discussing today, fears and traumas are basically source of all your self-sabotage, I can help you to get some magic mushrooms, which will help you to confront these fears and traumas and also heal them as well in a different way. You can also hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook, and I will help you to get some magic mushrooms. If you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And I also have on one of those shirts today is the Todd and Me collection that you can find.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So that is
Beautiful.
a shirt that my sister designed. It's called Todd and Me. So if you want to be, part of this movement that we're creating and making, and be part of this amazing community and movement that we have, get yourself a shirt, and that also helps us with things like editing and all that kind of stuff with the podcast. And if you also would like to support us and none of those things resonate with you, you can also become a member of our Patreon or our locals, and you'll be able to get direct access to me, and you would also get early releases of podcasts with no ads, because I know some of y'all don't like ads and stuff like that. So if this conversation moved you, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with your circle, come out with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. Every share helps us spread healing and truth to those who need it most. If you're listening on one of the podcast platforms like Spreaker, Spotify, or Apple, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review, as that helps us be recommended in the algorithms. Also, follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246 or the Conscious Man 7 podcast to see what we are up to on the daily. This was another awesome conversation with Dr. Robert Bleck. So thank you for being a guest on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. It was a really interesting, and I really enjoyed this conversation. And I'm sure that we added a lot of value to our listeners today. That will be all, folks. So remember, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Thank you again for being a guest, Dr. Robert Bleck, and speak to you guys soon. Cheers and namaste.